live.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Audit Committee on this Friday, the 29th of January 2021. I would like to welcome you on behalf of West Yorkshire Fire Services and Authority. So good morning, everybody, once again. Have we all read the minutes? And before the minutes, may I just say and thank Councillor Shaheen for substituting for Councillor Renshaw, who unfortunately couldn't attend today. And also, I'll be chairing today's meeting in the absence of Councillor Renshaw. Any more apologies at all? I know there's an apology from Deloitte's.
No, Chair, no further apologies.
Okay, thank you very much. So, minutes of the last meeting that was held on the 23rd of October 2020. Are we all okay with that? That's from page 1.
Move the minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Tilley. Any matters arising at all from the previous meeting? No. I don't think we have any urgent items, which is agenda item 3. Admissions of the public, which is the usual. Any declarations at all? Declaration to the pecuniary interests? Anybody? Okay, I'll take silence as a no. If that's the case, then shall we move on to agenda item 6, please, which is the internal audit quarterly review. That's from page 8. Internal audit quarterly review. Is that yourself, Simon?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was just turning on my camera and my microphone. Good morning, everybody. This is our routine quarterly report that you receive on that basis in what are clearly anything but routine circumstances. So I'd like to highlight 3 pieces of work which have been completed recently. We had hoped it would be 4, but there are some queries to resolve on the software licensing audit that we'd made reference to in the report. And I basically like to note that all 3 pieces of work we're speaking around got positive opinions, which is clearly good. So if I can take you to page 14, I think, in the pack. The first one relates to purchasing cards and the disbursement account. And just firstly to note that the rollout of purchasing cards will make this a significant means of procurement once it's complete, something of the nature of £400,000 credit limit at any one time collectively. We found that overall the processes are adequate once the rollout is complete, and that it will have appropriate controls to manage the risks. But for now, or at least at the time of the audit, which was a few weeks back, we found that there was some degree of risk at that time because for 2 reasons. It hadn't been possible to do training, or at least face-to-face training as intended. And there had been a number of system access issues which had prevented normal authorization of transactions, and that had led to a backlog of unposted expenditure on the ledger, and that was an issue that the finance team were having to become involved in to resolve. Secondly, the disbursement account itself, given the rollout of purchasing cards, well, the future of the account will need reviewing, and certainly the balance of the impress, which I think of the account at the moment, which I think is £50,000, will need reviewing and certainly reducing to reflect the increased use of purchasing cards in procurement generally across the authority. Then the second piece of work I'd like to talk around was the data protection compliance audit. Possibly some members may recall that we gave a positive assurance opinion on the initial preparation of, excuse me, on the initial preparation arrangements that the authority had made going back to 2018, and this was now reflected effectively in this post-implementation review, that those good things that have been put in place were enabled the changeover to be made fairly seamlessly. So we've come to the view that data protection issues have now really been absorbed into a normal business as usual mode across the authority. And because this is one of the risks on the risk management matrix, we've recommended that consideration be given by the strategic group that oversee that as to whether risk management really needs to, as to whether data protection still needs to be reflected in the risk matrix going forward. And then thirdly, I'd like to draw to your attention an important piece of follow-up audit work that we've done on operational competency and operational competency training and recording. This is because of, it's important in the sense because of its role in being a key mitigating control in managing many of the significant risks in the risk matrix, and indeed members will be receiving an update on this later on in the agenda. And because it impacts on one of the constituents in our annual report that we're required under our professional standards to give, which is an opinion on the robustness of the authority's arrangements for risk management. So basically a new in-house IT solution has been developed, which we found to be operating well and providing data to management in a timely and consistent way, albeit that the amount of data at the time we looked at it was relatively low, and it is effectively just accumulating as time moves on now, because data on the original system wasn't migrated across. So what we're going to do is we'll use this tool as the basis for checking that control is effective and being recorded in the future risk-based audits that we do. Members might recall one particularly around water rescue and flooding, where it's clearly important that everybody's had and recorded the relevant training. Basically a positive overall report at this stage, Chair. Happy to answer any questions that members may have, or that's it from me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Simon, for the report. Yeah, I'd like to just remind members here, if you'd like to ask a question, if there's a query or a comment, kindly raise your hand electronically, because I can only see you know, on the screen who's raised their hands. And also it would be preferable if you could kindly turn on your cameras as well when you're asking question, or when you're presenting as well, because when it goes live, it would be nice that people can see you when you're presenting or answering questions as well. Thank you. I think we've got this, one second, sorry. We've got Councillor David Hall who would like to ask a question, please. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just going back to purchasing cards, the first item that you reported on, I wonder whether we've any response from management over whether any progress has been made with problems over training and getting the ledgers up to date since the audit. And then just a question from me, you mentioned, and it says at the end of the report, about the historic balance, and the intention is to reduce it. How in actual fact is that done? In other words, what does it mean? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please, Simon.
Yeah, I think Alison Wood may be best placed to respond to Councillor Hall's queries.
Yeah, okay, she is presenting next anyway, so yeah, can we ask Alison to Alison.
Yes, of course, Councillor Almar. So in response to your question, Councillor Hall, the team are actually in the process of actually allocating the expenditures Simon's actually outlined. That needs to be done before the year end, but progress is certainly underway. Some training was given electronically to each watch that actually got a procurement card. And as Simon said, it's just the face-to-face training that's been quite difficult at the moment, but we're certainly underway to get that all done by before the year end.
Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you. What about the historic balance? How is that addressed at the end of the year?
The historic balance on the number of audits outstanding?
No, the 50k historic balance on the cards. Yeah.
Right. So the historic balance is in relation to the amount in the disturbance accounts in the actual petty cash that's held on station. So the procurement cards, the intention is that petty cash won't be really applicable on stations. So once again, before year end, we're going to actually call that in from stations.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Is that okay, Councillor Hall?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Can we have Councillor Fawzia Shaheen next, please? She would like to ask a question.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Hall actually asked some of my, well, half of the question I wanted to ask, but just in regards to the first paragraph, in regards to the risks, it would be good to know there still is a degree of risks arising from the changeover. So how will we actually manage this going forward? And then in regards to the training, I know Alison did say there has been some training, not face-to-face, but there has been some training, although on the second paragraph it says no training sessions have been undertaken due to COVID. So it'd be just good to know how will we ensure the training is actually taken up post-COVID maybe. And also in regards to the backlogs, it does say there's occurring a large backlog of unapproved transactions. So I'm assuming there will be quite a lot to do once everything is up and running. So how will we ensure we manage this so it's a true reflection of the accounts at the end and stuff? So thank you.
Right, I'll answer those questions, Councillor Shaheen, as best I can. So the risk, you mentioned the risk, so we've actually included full guidance notes for stations to actually use the cards. They actually use the Barclays Spend portal, for which training's been given from Barclaycard and also from the finance team. So regarding training, there has been a number of training sessions. I think Simon refers to the fact that due to COVID-19 there were no actual face-to-face training sessions, but I can certainly guarantee that training was given to every watch, because every watch has got a procurement card. Training was given to every watch that's actually got a purchase card. And as regarding the backlog, the team are actually underway and actually allocating that backlog. That's well underway now, and that will be cleared in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Alison. Any follow-up to that, Councillor Shaheen?
Thank you, Alison. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions at all?
Sorry, Chair, just to add, just to provide further clarity and reassurance, there are within the system configuration, there are controls about the amount of individual and cumulative spend on individual cards. So it's not as though somebody can go crazy with lots of unauthorized spend on large transactions, at least.
Sure. Thank you, Simon. Thanks for the clarity. Anything else at all to ask, from Simon or from Alison? Agenda item 6. If not, shall we move on to item 7, which is the abridged performance management report from page 19, and that's Alison.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the abridged performance management report following the full report that was presented to the full authority in December. The report is for the period the 1st of April to the 30th of September. If I can pass over to Dave Walton, and he will take you through the report.
Thank you, Alison, and good morning, everyone. By yourself, Chair. As Alison has mentioned, this is a report that has already been to full authority in its broadest sense, and it's also been considered by the Community Safety Committee as well regarding the specifics that we're drawing your attention to. To remind members that this report comes to you if there are any red indicators within it. As you will see from the table on page 23, we have a red indicator around the prevalence of false alarms. The explanation is the same as that's already been given to full authority and Community Safety Committee in as much as during the period last year, 2020, when COVID, the first peak was at its highest, we took a decision that we would attend all automatic fire alarms upon receipt of call. Members will recall that our standard policy, which we have now reverted to, is that where premises were occupied during the day, particularly business premises, then we would put a call to the premise first before we sent fire engines to it. Because of the fact that many premises were unoccupied, we took that decision to unilaterally send fire engines to everything. That in itself drove up that number. It was a temporary thing that worked its way through the system. The numbers were quite significant, which again reminds members why we have the false alarm policy that we do use extensively, and that is the reason that report is with you, simply because of that one red indicator, and I'm happy to take questions.
David, any questions at all, please? I think Councillor Shaheen, you had some question to ask with regards to prevalence of false alarms.
Yes, I think Dave has actually answered and clarified that, but it's just really a comment to say it's really good to see that we are achieving and exceeding targets, so that's fantastic, and like the prevalence of false alarms, and I think Dave has actually clarified that, so yeah, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Any more questions or queries or comments or remarks at all? No? If that's the case, shall we move on to the risk management strategy group update, which is agenda item 8 from page 27. Is it yourself, John Tidswell?
No, I'll take that, Chair.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. So this is to report the risk management activity and developments that are reported to our risk management strategy group in December last year, to highlight any future risks and risk related areas. So to go through the report on page 28, the risk management strategy group actually meet every 3 months, and it's chaired by Dave Walton, the Deputy Chief Fire Officer. At section 2.1, the last meeting was held in December last year, and at 2.2 there's a summary of the key areas that was discussed at that meeting. So between September and December, the risk management group discussed 16 risks that have been reviewed with their respective owners. The risk regarding ineffective response and recovery to the coronavirus pandemic, leading to an impacting on staff, absence levels, health, safety, well-being, service delivery and public community partners, finance, reputation and legal issues, is reviewed every 3 months. The risk score is currently a 12 for that risk. As part of the COVID-19 service recovery plan and the strategic impact assessment, all of the corporate risks have recently been assessed for their actual and potential impacts of COVID over the different time periods. So any impact on the corporate risks will be reviewed at each of the risk management strategy group meetings and at management team meetings as well if required. The score relating to the temporary loss of personnel due to flu or industrial action has resulted in reduced levels of service. That's increased from a 6, which was medium, to a 16, which is very high. And also we are carrying out some member development session on risk management, and that is due to be carried out on the 15th of February. So hopefully all members will be able to attend that. There are currently 54 risks on our risk management matrix, and they are 6 of them are very high, 22 are high, 22 are medium, 4 are low, and that's a total of 54. There's been no change to those risks, either going up or down, since the last meeting that was held in September. On page 29, on paragraph 2.3, we've listed there the 6 very high risks for members. So the report is for members to note, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Alison.
Thank you.
Let me see who's raised the hands. We got, yeah, Councillor Fawzia Shaheen, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alison, as well for the report. In regards to the table which states very high, high, medium, low, I just think it'd be really good to have a breakdown how we've got for the very high risks. So it'd be good to know what high is, because there is quite a substantial amount, like 20, 22, 22, 22. So it'd be good to know what area that covers. I don't know if that's possible, but it'd be good to actually have a further breakdown. But also, just for some clarity, it might be something that you've already answered, but in regards to when we're looking at very high, so from March 2020, it says 6. So up until December 2020, it's 6 as well. So is that the same risk that we had in March and we've got the same in December? For example, the loss of reduction in government grant for that period, did it apply from March up until December, and then the same as wide area flooding and swift water rescue? Was it the same in March and was it the same in December? Because going forward, like 3 months on, will it be the same risks that apply then as well? Just some clarity, please.
Okay, I would say, I mean, I haven't got the details of all of those from that time period, but I would say they are likely to be the same risks. And Dave Walton, who chairs the meeting, is nodding as well. So Dave's in agreement that those will be the same risks as they were at that time.
If I may, through you, Chair, just to comment on that, those very highest risks, we do consider in their very widest sense at Risk Management Strategy Group. So whilst throughout the year that there are individual issues and nuances that may force our opinion up or down, in the very broadest sense that they remained at very high throughout the year as well. And if I can also respond, Chair, on Councillor Shaheen's question about those risks which are high, members may recall that once a year we bring the full risk matrix to members of this committee for them to review. We do that simply because it's a massive document and it's a difficult read, so we tend to focus upon it once a year. Notwithstanding that, if Councillor Shaheen wants to contact me offline, I'm more than happy to talk through which those high risks are, or indeed any of the members as well.
Brilliant, thank you, Dave. Councillor Shaheen, I think Dave explained that, and Alison as well, so thank you for that.
Yes,
if you
thank
need
you.
further information, then obviously, you know, the officers are more than happy to send you the details. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or queries at all for this agenda item? If not, then we'll swiftly move on to agenda item 9, which is the service assurance report. That's page 31.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. The purpose of the report is to update the Audit Committee on the internal assurance processes, namely the HMI inspection, in addition to the implementation of what will be the new fire standards. And we recommend that members note the content of the report. So members will be aware that the provision of assurance and West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service's responsibility around assurance within the National Framework document. As a result, there is a dedicated team, the Service Improvement Assurance Team, that provide that high level of assurance to Management Board, the Fire Authority, through the management of the HMIC inspection regime, the implementation of what will be the new fire standards, and also the management of the internal service assurance process. A key element of the CAT's work, particularly over the last 9 to 12 months, has been working with regards to the West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Services recovery plan. The recovery plan looks at 3 key areas of recovery. Firstly, understanding the impact of COVID-19 during this pandemic, identifying and collating the learning, and probably more importantly, ensuring that we embed and promote what will be a new normality as we move away from what is the pandemic. Part of that, and to allow us to ensure that effectively and allow us to provide our services to the community, we undertook what's something called a strategic impact assessment as a result of COVID-19, and that included a 4-month period where the SEAT team held one-to-one meetings, produced a departmental recovery and review questionnaire, and also provided a pestle analysis with regards to the impacts. The outcome of that was quite wide-ranging and contained around 221 statements involving 27 departments, and each one of those was graded against the HMIC-FRS pillars in addition to the governance. So part of that now was ensuring that as an organisation we understand the impact of COVID-19 and how we will manage that as we move forward. Part of that will be the self-assessment. So members will be aware that the third release of the self-assessment, the annual self-assessment and toolkit, is in place. That looks at 17 core areas across the whole of the organisation. Part of that will be the outcomes of the strategic impact assessment, as well as the new additions, which are the COVID-19 assurance, COVID-19 one-to-ones, an anti-racism toolkit, the smarter working methodology, as well as data protection and governance, and that complements the core areas of legal compliance, training compliance, and departmental objectives. With regards to the timeline for the service assurance, we're now in a position where the return date of January 2021 is in place, and February 2021 will see us evaluate the self-assessment and report any findings to both management team, board, and ultimately to authority. In addition to that, with regard to 2.1, we have the service delivery process, which looks more around our operational assurance and ensures that any department or team that has an impact, whether that's direct or indirect in operational effectiveness, is also assured. The main focus of that is firefighter safety, which obviously involves public safety, category 1 and 2 responders, and including sort of efficiency and effectiveness as well. The target date for the implementation of that will be April 2021. Moving on to Her Majesty's Inspectorate and Constabulary. I won't dwell on this too long because I provided a presentation to authority members a couple of weeks ago with regards to the outcomes, but members will be aware that in October 2020, the HMIC-FRS provided a COVID-19 themed inspection, which was an inspection. It was entirely remote as a result of COVID-19, and it focused on how us as a service responded to the COVID-19 outbreak, what we did well, what we learned, and what changes are likely. It was quite an involved process, involved strategic interviews, a significant amount of data collection, including surveys and dialogue with both rep bodies and all departments. The outcome of that COVID-19 inspection was a letter which members will have seen, albeit it was a letter which was a narrative rather than a graded judgment, which is something that we're used to. And it's obviously pleasing to note that the HMIC mentioned that they were grateful and positive for the constructive way in which the service engaged in the inspection, and it was also very grateful for the service for the positive contribution that it made to the community during the pandemic. The next steps with regards to the HMIC will be second round proper, if you like, whereby it won't be just COVID-19, it will be an inspection of the whole organisation. West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service are in tranche 2, which means that we'll start to get data collection as we move through into May, June 2021. And then lastly, it was worth drawing our attention to members of 2.6, which is the implementation of the fire standards. The fire standards are an independent body which are looking at bringing continual improvement across the service, providing a consistency and clarity of standard. It's really important that as an organisation we embrace these standards. The service assurance and improvement team are involved in that currently, as the new fire standards will form a fundamental part of what will be the HMIC performance criteria moving forward. A number of professional standards are due to be publicised, which are in table 2.6.4. I won't go through them all. If members require any further information or detail around them, happy to provide that. So in conclusion, the internal service assurance process will continue to develop. It will be robust and establish and involve the fire standards moving forward. And happy to take any questions, Chair.
Excellent, Matthew. Thank you. Any questions or queries at all? If so, please raise your hands. We all seem to be very happy with that, Matthew, so very well presented. I think we've got one question there. That's Councillor David Hall, please. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's not really about the substance of it, but just the timelines of it. Can you just get it clear in my mind, please, about the HMI inspection? We stuff was collated. We got some graded judgments, and then we get a letter. The letter's been received, hasn't it?
That's right, Councillor Hall. Yes.
And so when will we get? Well, is that public first, and will we get some kind of briefing on the response which the fire authority will be giving to the letter?
Yes, that's right, Councillor. So it's slightly different, the COVID-19 inspection, given that it isn't a graded judgment. It's just a letter that provides a narrative around things that we did, both positive and areas where we can learn. With regards to presenting that to full authority, I believe that we will be putting a paper into full authority to give everybody an outline of that. That is in addition to the presentation that I gave, I think it was last week, to members with regards to the outline of that.
That's super. Thank you for that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Any more questions at all? I don't see any. If that's the case, thank you very much for presenting that, Matthew.
Thank you.
Let's move on to Deloitte's item 10, which is external audit annual letter. Item 10, please. And that's from page 37, the Deloitte's report.
Thank you, Chair. So, as what you've said there, this is our annual audit letter, which just concludes our work on the 1920 financial statements. So this is just a summary of reports that members have seen before. So I don't propose going through sort of page by page in terms of the report, but I just wanted to highlight that we signed an unmodified opinion on both the financial statements and the value for money opinion in line with the revised national deadline, but happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Yeah, it was quite a self-explanatory letter and whatever. But yeah, if there's any questions or queries, please raise your hands so I can see that electronically. We've got Councillor Hall, please. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's good to see this all coming to a conclusion. Glad to see it's a good one. On page 46, this is just a general question actually for you as auditors. When we have to give value for money conclusions, are there a lot of times when public bodies do not get a satisfactory value for money conclusion? Is it a rare occurrence, or do most public bodies tend to get value for money as being satisfactory?
It tends to be mixed, really. It depends what sort of inspectorate reports have. I asked for councils if they've had a negative Ofsted report, then the value for money opinion tends to be qualified as a result. So it's quite mixed. I wouldn't have said it was rare either way, really.
Okay, yeah, just interested. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you for the question and for the explanation as well. Yeah, anything else at all to ask Deloitte? Okay, if you haven't got any further questions or queries, that was the end of today's items. And if there's any other business, anything else, please do ask. If not, thank you very much. We've had a good meeting today. Excellent reports and all that. I think we're all happy with that. So thank you to all my colleague councillors, to the members of West Yorkshire Fire Services, Fire and Rescue Services, the officers, and also to the external auditors, Deloitte, and so on, and to the public who've been watching us. Thank you very much. I'd like to close the meeting. Have a good weekend. Thank you.